Yeah, this gonna be some of my best work.
Now, thankfully, Barbershop, that was just a role, but he did work as an insurance agent.
Well, I was doing claims, so I was the person that after you had the wreck, I came in and had to deal with it.
But we know him from TV and movies.
Oh my God, no! Like I wanted things that I could sink my teeth into that I thought people would be like, that is exactly how I know that man.
And that made him a star, a big star who's been making us laugh ever since as a king of comedy.
I take it so personal when you go out on stage. It's literally a connection with somebody trying to make them just let go of their regular stress.
And we've got him for 30 minutes.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Cedric the Entertainer on The Pulse.
Hello.
We are bringing in people who have great careers, doing different things, using their voice for good, having fun. And today, we've got, I often struggle as how you define people who've done so much. So comedian, actor, host. This brother's been on Broadway. I didn't even know that. One of the original kings of comedy, Cedric the Entertainer. How are you, sir?
What's good? I'm pulled up.
I appreciate you taking the time. You were on Broadway?
Yeah. I did a very short run of David Mamet's American Buffalo. It was me, John Leguizamo, and Haley Joel Osment.
Wow, a little bit of everything. So we look back through the background. On The Pulse, we kind of bring people up to speed. And I was looking at how you got into this. How did you get into comedy in the first place?
I mean, I was working at State Farm. I had a regular job, and it was a comedian who was a friend of ours, a mutual friend of the group, was out working, and he would always often like, yo, man, that's funny what you just said. Can I take that? Oh, that's funny right there. Can I take that? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. So he eventually came back and told me that, he felt like I can do comedy. And he signed me up for a comedy competition, kind of showed me how to do the things that I normally say, put it in a routine for me. And I went and I won $500 the first time I did it. So I was hooked in at that point.
And you were an insurance salesman at the time.
Yeah, I was doing claims. So I was the person that after you had the wreck, I came in and had to deal with it.
I hear those stories. It's always amazing. Michael Blackson was working at Domino's in Philly, and someone told him he was funny. Sarah Silverman, Tracy Morgan was just on with us and have similar situations. Y'all have to be a special kind of person when someone says you're funny and you're like, all right, cool, let's go with it.
I mean, at that time, of course, it was starting to be a great, a surgence of comedy. You're talking about late 80s. You had like, the formulation of guys starting to grow. Eddie Murphy was killing it on Saturday Night Live. So he young, he your age. You see somebody 19, 20 killing it, right? You start to have that belief like, oh, I can do that. And so then, then came, like the Wayans brothers and those guys started to do things and be on TV and doing specials, and Robert Townsend. So you started to see more faces, not just on the regular kind of institutional shows, but things that really felt black to you. I can do this without transferring like who I am to fit into the status quo. And so then, of course, the Def Jams and all those things started to come into the atmosphere, and then that's where the opportunity came. So you can look and see people that was examples for you and that at least gave you the courage to go like, well, yeah, I had a job. This dude talking about he coming home with $1,400, $1,500. I'm like, whoa.
It's like, maybe I am funny. Like, I should give this a try.
I'm at least that funny.
That comedy club routine, that's not easy. Like, that's work.
Again, generation I grew up with, when you get booked, you got to drive 8-9 hours to a show. You got to, sometimes you got to stay in some very, very terrible situations, you got to go and do, if you're working for the comedy club circuit back then, you would have to do from 8 to 11 shows to make $300, you know what I'm saying, as an opening act. But, it was one of those things, if you did that 4 times, in a month, then you felt like you made a little money that month. You can pay your bills, you can handle your situation. So that was the hustle.
Was Steve Harvey's show the first big break? What was the big break for you?
I mean, getting on Def Jam, getting on the Apollo, those were really big milestones for, just as a comedian. Like Apollo was first, and went and did the Apollo, got a standing ovation. Was 1-0, never went back until I was a pro. Like I did not take no chances with that Apollo audience. Came to host the Comic View first, and that gave me a little more of a, kind of a household name, especially in the African American community. And so then I was able to go around and tour, and show up in Little Rock and Birmingham and show up and make, a nice amount of money because I was the guy that hosted Comic View. And then, of course, the Steve Harvey Show after that was one that put you on like a kind of national TV platform.
So you're doing the circuit, you get on the TV, you're having success throughout your career. And so there's a lot of different steps to talk about. And then the original Kings of Comedy. And the reason that was such a big thing, at least for me, when I first saw it in all the headlines, was you guys kind of took ownership of your own career. You're one of the first to do that, right? You guys put this together, you controlled the money, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We had a partner that was the promoter, and he was the fifth member of the Beatles, if you will, right? So, but that's the way we did it. He was a young guy out of North Carolina. He put together the tour, and yet we owned the material. We owned who we were. We were all these individual like kind of stars that came together as one super group, and that was rare. We had the model was based off of Super Fest, which was the concerts where, like Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder would be there. That was his concept, was to put like big acts all in one night. But, because we were all individuals, we had to kind of figure out how to operate. And so we started to operate as a super group, as one big thing that went together. And so, all of the guys, we had control of the rights to the film. We had control of, what we made on the stage. And so that's how we end up having the most success.
Were y'all cool like that, for real? Like when you saw it, y'all seemed like brothers out there doing that. Did that grow or was that real?
No, of course, me and Harv, we locked in. We was, because we were doing the Steve Harvey Show at the time, and we'd come up. He had a comedy club in Dallas where he kind of first saw me and put me in the spotlights, and so Harv was my guy, and then me and DL became partners because he was the first host of Comic View, and so when I came in, he handed me the baton, and we did a tour together. And so then we became locked in. And B-Mac was always everybody's favorite dude. And so, as the tour grew, we all grew. I think that at the end of the tour, of course, when money came into play, that's why we never was able to do it again. It's like people kind of got to their individual corners and just kind of like, did their own thing, except, again, and it was hard to get those guys to kind of, those alpha males to lock in and understand that it was about the business,
Right. But the first time when the checks start coming in, oh, okay, like this is not bad. It was sellout tours.
That was a whole nother lifestyle. That was private jets and everybody had suites and it was boss life, man. That Kings of Comedy was something else.
Did you guys realize at the time that you were kind of changing things? Like at that point, and again, we've had a bunch of people on a couple of weeks ago, guys from New Edition were here and telling the stories about you did all this and you did these sellout tours and you're traveling and you made no money. And you guys kind of changed the structure by having control of it.
That was really a great thing. Because it was individuals, of course, that had done like arena tours before us, Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, Andrew Dice Clay, that I can remember at the time, but they were all like these kind of individual juggernauts. No one had kind of taken the New Edition approach, the super group, like a bunch of guys together, and we all figured out how we all gonna eat and make money.
Coming up, why he's thankful he got started before all of today's social media drama.
And I could imagine if I lived in the day of the internet, like if it was Twitter and all that stuff, I might have got canceled.
Son, you want to learn how to drive? Here's your first lesson.
You see what she's wearing? I made this outfit myself.
Get upstairs and finish making the rest of it.
A lot of the roles have been kind of representing us. These empowering, positive, but funny, kind of roles. At what point, production companies, different acts, did you realize It's not just about being funny. It's also about being empowering.
As a comedian, you just trying to work. Of course, you want to, you blow up and get your career. But, I was always like, again, I came from with a college degree. I came into it from the corporate side of things. So I always had these other kind of responsibilities. Even when I was on stage, my mother, who was a school teacher, she never really wanted me to curse a lot on stage. So that was also another part of my brand. Like I never just, was blatant with curse words or just being rude on stage or saying things that I thought just was, intentionally offensive. Like I wanted things that I could sink my teeth into that I thought people would be like, that is exactly how I know that man. I know this person, right? So, Barbershop would be one for sure. Johnson Family Vacation. And again, we did things on Johnson Family Vacation that a lot of people kind of forget, but I love the fact that in the movie, I was separated from my wife. I wasn't like no super good dude at first, right? I mean, so you got to look at, like, he was a married man that had to fight for something. And I was like, yo, you kind of missed the story in that because the movie's just kind of this funny about being on vacation and all this stuff. But you forget, like, the real issue was, Nate was egotistical and he had to fight to get his family back. I was like, oh, I love like that the moment of showing this is what really happened because I grew up in a household like that, so it made sense to me,
Going backwards, I remember Barbershop that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
When we watched Barbershop, I think everybody who's ever been in a black barbershop I certainly saw the character and went, man, they're nothing offensive about that. Every barbershop's got that guy who's sitting in there going off on his own tangent and belief system, and I know what's going on. But there were some people who were upset about you playing that role in Barbershop.
Man, that was one of the first times in my career that I really ran up on true contentious energy, like that opposite side. And I could imagine if I lived in the day of the internet, like if it was Twitter and all that stuff, I might have got canceled. A lot of the large civil rights leaders called me. They were very upset about it. Of course, producers, we had different producers on the movie. It was a great deal of contention on what should be said and why. And, and kind of to your point, my thing was this character was a guy that was his job in the barbershop. He was older. He had his own belief system. And like most of our aunts and grandmothers and people we know, once they get over a certain age, dog, they not biting their tongue, man. They gonna say what they gonna say, and you just gonna have to deal with it, right, wrong, or indifferent. And that's what you find endearing about them. If you do anything short of that, then you don't capture exactly who this guy is, and that's all I was doing.
I segue into comments recently about Will Smith, because you said if you lived in that particular time with social media trying to shut you down for something, instead people talked to you, they did it with love, you learned from it. You recently said this is a path too far with people who are trying to completely silence Will Smith's career for what happened.
We've all known Will Smith as this affable, great, unique, talented individual most of our careers. When you let a moment be the defining thing to where now it's all our responsibility to throw this guy in a trash can because of an action that you deemed a line crossed too far, then, again, who are we? Like, guys, I used to always say people act like people. And I got in trouble for this a little bit. It was a controversial statement. I said, not that I wanted it to happen to Chris Rock. That's my brother. Like, I love Chris Rock too. But what I felt like is America had got to the point that they forgot that it's a thing where you can get this smacked out of you. Like, it's a part of life where people start to be on Twitter and writing letters and saying what they want to about you and talking about your kids. And you forget, it's a thing in life, dog. If you go too far with the wrong person, they're going to slap it out you. And I got that. It happened on television, and that was wrong, and we should save our idols, and we should protect them. But what I feel like that's the only way Will Smith would have did something like that. He just will. He's not that dude. He's not a villain. He's not a villain. Don't make him a villain. This was something that was personal. It happened to him, and he responded. That was that. Leave it alone.
There's a meme that goes around on social media from Mike Tyson that said, social media made people way too comfortable disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it.
Exactly. And everybody love that one. but it's because it's a quote and it's Mike Tyson saying it. And it's so true. It's one of my favorite. Everybody got a plan until they get smacked in the mouth. Like, okay. You like, right. But, we grew up, like, again, from St. Louis, being in the space that respect is very one of the common things about it. And I say this, as a man, as a father, respect is the key, dog. If I show you respect, you show me respect. If you show me disrespect, then these things start to elevate a circumstance. And so we want to have more decorum in the world. We want to have, that's why I'm, again, about all these things about, that go into the political realm where people feel like they could just say anything about anybody. It's where you create this kind of, this high energy where the lines are short and the fuse is short. And, right now the world needs to be in a point where we can talk, you can disagree. We can have, but we don't have to get there as long as we show respect.
Coming up, how his current tour, it's almost like his comedy ministry. You don't have to do this. So you're doing this because you still love doing it.
Yeah, it's just no more magical situation than that. Like it's really powerful. It's almost like being a pastor, I think.
Coming, the biggest names in comedy. Mike Epps, Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, Earthquake, and DC Youngfly. The Street Jokes, No Chaser Comedy Tour.
First of all, when you say my name, put some respect on that.
You're on tour now. Is this like a new kind of Kings of Comedy? Because you got people together again.
I always love these kind of opportunities because we got a young promoter in Chicago. It's a group of them. It's a Black promoter collective. But I love when these kind of ideas, so not only just the guys on the front of the stage, but the guys that's behind us putting the show together. We doing it with a group of people that are building a business. They needed the opportunity to be out here promoting and doing shows. Once you kind of go into the arena thing, then, the Live Nations and the AEG, they become the AI, them the big guys that take over like arena tours. So the Black promoter ends up being pushed to the side. So we've been successful. We've been out with these guys a couple of times. We grew the business. Mike Epps is wild and off the hook, like you know him to be, but he's funny and a genius. And then you got DC Youngfly, the hot young gun. He like on stage, working, being magical, creative. He's a creative little dude, man. He do his thing. And Earthquake legend. He been rocking D.L. Hughley, my partner legend. And then me, man. We've been having a great time on this tour.
You don't have to do this. So you're doing this because you still love doing it.
It's just no more magical situation than that. Like it's really powerful. It's almost like being a pastor, I think, like where your job is to come out and try to get somebody to laugh, like to let go of whatever it is that they've been dealing with. Like, ooh, thank you, bro. Like, so I take it so personal when you go out on stage because that's what it is. It's literally a connection with somebody, and a group of somebody's at this point is trying to make them just let go of they regular stress.
Coming up, so he uses his voice for good, giving scholarships, but it does come with conditions.
And I always joke with the kids, hey, if you don't graduate, you owe me my money back. That's all I'm saying.
I was able to donate money, which is, what you kind of naturally do when you see it from a distance. But, I wanted to be able to come down and see, how this storm affected, the people that people that you love, and then what we're doing to give back.
One of the things that we always talk about on The Pulse is things that people are doing, how they're using their voice for good.
My mother's a school teacher, and so she just always, and just my younger sister, myself, who's also an educator, she's a professor at Pepperdine. So my mother's passed since, but she always kind of instilled in us, this idea of, giving back. So I've done scholarships since '96. I've, put a lot of people through school with their first tuition money, figure out how to help kids through school. And I always joke with the kids, don't mind the loan, though. I'll give you a scholarship, but you got to graduate. I got to see. If you don't graduate, you owe me my money back. That's all I'm saying. So I be walking kids down. But my mother passed. And so we now since have done a hospital, a wing at a hospital in St. Louis, St. Mary's. We have the Rosetta Boys Kyles Women's Pavilion. This is health-oriented, all women's health programs. So, these are the kind of things that I raise money for.
What does use your voice for good mean to you?
Oh, man, use your voice for good, man. I think that is the idea of understanding how you can affect your community, affect generations to come by, being a great example, not just saying what it is that you're about, but being what it is that you're about. That's what it's all about. Be a positive energy, be a powerful energy, use your voice for good. That's it.
I thank you because for years, if you was having a bad day or whatever, putting on the original Kings of Comedy had a way of making everything turn around and you could just laugh for a while. I appreciate you for that and for your career.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. This is awesome, man. I didn't know what to expect, but this is great, man. This was a fun interview, and you keep doing this.
I'm not even going to lie. That's a highlight for me. Because Cedric the Entertainer, aside from being just hilarious, also is inspirational, empowering, and I really enjoyed spending time with him. I believe you did as well. Now, if you want to hear the entire interview, you can head over to all places where podcasts are available. Just hit subscribe so you get a notification every Monday. I leave you today, as I always do, reminding you whenever you can, use your voice for good and have a good one.